And that gets us to our second principle. Our second principle, watch me here. Forgiveness isn't enough. I must strive for reconciliation. And again, I know this sounds counter to what I just said a minute ago, but stick with me here. Forgiveness isn't enough. I must strive for reconciliation. Now, earlier I said success is not reconciliation, and I'm sticking by that. That you can't control whether you get there. But what I'm saying is I can't stop trying until I get there. I may not get there, but it's not going to be, I did my part. I may never get there, but I'm always going to be striving for it because that ultimately is where I need to get to. If you had to take Christianity and dumb it down to one word, what is Christianity all about? What does it mean that Christ came to this earth? It's not forgiveness. It's reconciliation. And reconciliation, forgiveness is part of it, but it's so much more. Reconciliation means that something was broken and it's been fixed. That two people were separate and they've been united together. That's Christ's ministry in a nutshell. Not just, okay, I forgive you. Forgiveness, just so you know, is easier than reconciliation, right? It's easy to stand here and say, okay, I forgive her. I don't want to see her face ever again, but I forgive her. That's easy. And some of us, if we're honest, that's kind of a cop-out for us. We're kind of going with that, well, I forgave them. Okay, forgive is good. But Christianity boils down to not just God saying, okay, I forgave them. Get them out of my face. I forgive them. But I forgive them in order to reconcile with them. Let me show you this passage from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 18 to 21. Now, all things are of God. Watch how many times he says the word reconcile. Now, all things are of God, who has reconciled us to himself through Jesus Christ and has given us the ministry of reconciliation. That is, that God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, not imputing their trespasses to them, and has committed to us the word of reconciliation. Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were pleading through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, say with me, be reconciled to God. Watch this verse. For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. This is more than forgive. This is more than forgive. Forgive is, okay, I'm not going to punish you. I let it go. That's not this. This is, I forgive, I come to you, I take the first step, actually I take the first 10 steps, I see what's the problem, I do all the sacrifice on my end to repair the relationship. This is why for us, okay, when we look at an orthodox view of the sacraments, especially that passage in John chapter 3 where it talks about being born again, we look at baptism. What is baptism for? Why do we baptize little babies? And because they need forgiveness of sin? They're like a week old, they haven't done anything wrong. Because baptism, the sacraments are not just about forgiveness of sin. That's part of it. But there's more to it. It's about unity and about intimacy. I'll give you another example. Think of the sacraments that are connected. They're two sides of the same coin. And I wish that we can restore this view of this sacrament. I know we don't today as much as we should. But communion and confession are two sides of the same coin. That we go to confession on Saturday so that we can come to communion on Sunday. Because that's how it works. It's not just we come and he says, okay, I forgive you. That's the first half. He says, I forgive you, and now I unite with you in the sacrament of communion. It's not just about forgiveness. It's about reconciliation. You know why we like forgiveness more than reconciliation? Forgiveness, I control it. All the cards are in my hand. You're over there, and I can say, okay, you get a forgiveness card. You get a forgiveness card. I'll make you work for it a little bit, okay? But in the end, I give you, and it's all in my control. Reconciliation? Reconciliation's messy. Reconciliation's uncomfortable. Reconciliation involves risk. I have to open myself up to the other person. I have to bring up some of those, remember the bury, avoid, pretend? I have to bring some of that stuff up. And I could get rejected. And the person could laugh in my face. And the person who hurt me a little, may end up hurting me a lot more. But isn't that what Christ did? Didn't Christ have to roll up his sleeves? Didn't Christ have to walk across the room? Didn't Christ have to risk rejection with every one of us? But that's our calling. It's not just forgiveness. Too many of us are hiding behind forgiveness. Too many of us are saying we did our part because we forgave. And yes, while I agree that sometimes reconciliation is unsafe and sometimes it is unwise, I admit that and I say that and there's no problem there. But let's be honest, that's the exception, not the rule. And too many of us are hiding behind that as like, yeah, because, no, that's the exception, not the rule. The rule is reconciliation. I'll give you another passage from St. Paul, Colossians chapter 1, verse 19. It says, "For it pleased the Father that in him all the fullness should dwell, and by him to reconcile all things to himself." That's the goal, people, to reconcile all things to himself. By him, whether things on earth or things in heaven, having made peace through the blood of his cross. And you who were once alienated, meaning you who the relationship was broken, you who were once alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now he has reconciled. St. Paul got it. St. Paul, who again, as I said earlier, was the worst of the worst before he became a Christian. He gets it. He gets it that the goal isn't for God to say, okay, I forgive you, leave me alone. I forgive you, I don't want to talk to you ever again. I forgive you, but don't come near me at Thanksgiving. That's not the goal. That's the first step. Forgiveness was step one, to open the door, to remove the barrier, to be able to reconcile. Because that is our calling as children of God. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're going in this series. I apologize for the false advertising. You thought you were going to come here and I was going to give you 10 rules to get other people to see things your way. I'll work on that for the next series. But I think our calling right now is much greater. I think our calling right now is to be more like Jesus. And Jesus didn't come to make us see things his way, the right way. Jesus didn't come to say, okay, you're over there, I'm over here. Clearly I'm right because I'm Jesus. You, come on over here. Jesus came down, rolled up his sleeves, got his hands dirty, and he reconciled us to himself. And now he calls us to do the same thing. One more time, can we read this together? Romans 12:18. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. I want to finish by reminding you of a parable that Jesus told. I'm sure you've heard it before. Whether you read the Bible or not, you remember this from Sunday school. Parable of the lost sheep. Remember this story? Once upon a time, there was a shepherd. He had 100 sheep. And one of those sheep wandered away. And we all know, what did the shepherd do when the sheep wandered away? He left the 99 and went out and looked for him. Very nice story. Let's make that personal and practical for us. Let's say you got 100 relationships, and one of them wanders away. One of those relationships goes over there. You got 99, is looking good. One of them wandered over there. What would you say? What would be your response? You'd say, rogue sheep. Rebel sheep. I'm batting 99 out of 100. One guy, clearly it's his fault. And you would say to yourself, I'm a good Christian, so I forgive the sheep. I forgive him. I forgive the sheep for wandering off. And if that sheep wants to come back, welcome him with open arms. He knows where to find me. There's 99 of us. Can't be that hard. But is that what Jesus said? What did Jesus say? He says the one shepherd leaves the 99 sheep and goes for the one that was lost. He tries to reconcile. And he has to look. He's got to run far. And he goes in dangerous situations. And he goes after that one sheep. And he does whatever is in his power, even risking danger and even risking rejection. He does whatever it is in his power. Now, ultimately, he can't control the sheep coming back or not. But he does everything in his power to reconcile with that sheep. The Pharisees, who are like the bad guys in the Bible, this annoyed them. If you look at the Pharisees, what annoyed them the most was exactly this principle. They didn't have a problem with Jesus forgiving people. Their problem was Jesus going out of his way to reconcile with them. So like Jesus, would go to their parties. Why do you do that? Jesus would go hang out at pools of sick people who they believe sick were cursed by God for whatever sin that they did. Jesus, why you do that? Jesus, get with the program. Here's the program. We're religious. You want to be like us? This is how it works. You stay right here in the synagogue and in the temple. You preach the truth. You want to preach forgiveness? Go ahead. You want to preach love? No problem. But you stay here. You preach the truth. And if somebody messes up, and somebody sins, and somebody walks away, and they come back, we forgive them. And they want to be restored to this, and they walk, no problem. But stop going after them. Stop going to their parties. Stop going to their homes. You're ruining the whole thing for the rest of us. Get with the program. If they apologize, and they come back, accept them. But till then, we stay here, we do our thing, and we avoid them. Sorry to say it. Which of those two sounds more like you? You sound more like Jesus in the story, or more like the Pharisees? You're the one doing the going after, and the chasing, and the reconciling? Or you're the one waiting for an apology? Digging those heels in, saying, I'll forgive them if they come back. I'll forgive them once they realize they're wrong. Jesus came, his whole ministry was reconciliation. His whole ministry was a broken relationship that he came to repair. His whole ministry was going out of his way, risking rejection, rolling up his sleeves to do that which we were unable to do on our own because he was the better person. And if we're going to be his followers, if we're going to take Christianity seriously, read the Bible, very important. Say your prayers, very important. Go to church, very important. But come on, if we're going to do all that, and we're going to ignore this whole area of relationships and reconciliation,